6 months ago, Chris Packham told The Telegraph that he does not hate Jeremy Clarkson. He said Clarkson had been extraordinarily hospitable when they worked together, and even suggested their public feud had been exaggerated. Then he sat down to watch Clarkson's farm on Celebrity Gogglebox, and the calm tone did not last long. "That's not what a farm looks like," Packham said, watching the opening titles with his stepdaughter, Megan McCubbin, beside him. From there, the whole argument reopened. Packham argued that most farms are horrible monocultures, sprayed with chemicals again and again, the ground loaded with fertilizer, animals kept indoors in crates, crushed together and left in the dark. In his view, Clarkson's show gave people the wrong idea about farming. Clarkson answered in his Sun column with one word that did most of the work: bollocks. But he did not stop there. He made a specific claim that Packham already knew better, because Packham had seen the farm with his own eyes years earlier. And that is where this story gets interesting. Welcome back to proper British farming. Let's get into it. Because this is not just a row between two television personalities. This is a collision between two different versions of the same story. And the gap between those versions is bigger than it first appears. In early 2026, Packham told a national newspaper the rivalry had been exaggerated and called Clarkson extraordinarily hospitable. Months later, on a program watched by millions, he described the show Clarkson built his second career on as an idealistic lie about British farming. Those two versions of Chris Packham do not sit comfortably in the same year. That is the real story here. This is not just about one angry line on television. It's about what happens when public relationships, public opinion, and public performance all start pulling in different directions. You already know the cast, so there's no need to reintroduce everyone. What matters is the pattern. Because this is not round 1, it's round 4. And once you lay all 4 rounds out in order, the whole conflict looks much less random. Round 1 happened in November 2023. Clarkson used his Sun column to attack the BBC's Planet Earth 3, complaining that David Attenborough's series had become too focused on climate change and not enough on the animals themselves. Packham hit back on social media, defended Attenborough, and called Clarkson a massive kickoff. A real quote, posted under his own name to his own followers. That set the tone. Clarkson provokes in print. Packham responds in public. Round 2 came in January 2025. Clarkson mocked Winterwatch and dismissed Packham's environmental activism, saying he did not understand the real world. Shorter than round 1, but the same structure. Clarkson throws the punch. Packham answers. Round 3 is the one most casual viewers forgot. And that matters, because it changes how the whole story should be read. Sometime in early to mid-2026, Packham gave The Telegraph an interview and did something few people expected. He de-escalated. "Everybody expects me to hate Jeremy," he said, "but we worked together and he was extraordinarily hospitable." That does not sound like a man looking for another fight. It sounds like someone trying to reframe the relationship. He went further, suggesting Clarkson sometimes antagonizes a situation deliberately to promote conversation, essentially describing Clarkson's strategy like one broadcaster analyzing another's playbook, not accusing him of being fake, but explaining the method. Then, months later, Packham did the exact same thing on national television. That is the irony. Maybe it's hypocrisy, maybe it's just two outspoken men being outspoken when the cameras are on, but either way, the symmetry is hard to ignore. Round 4 is where we are now. Celebrity Gogglebox airs. Packham objects to the opening titles, then widens the attack to farming as an industry. Crates, chemicals, fertilizer. The language gets stronger, the claim gets broader. Clarkson responds in The Sun, and this is where the story takes its sharpest turn. Because he doesn't just deny the criticism, he makes a specific, checkable claim. Clarkson wrote that Packham knows his business, because back in 2012, Packham came to Diddley Squad and spent the day foraging and birdwatching in the woods. He added that if there had been animals in crates being crushed, Packham would have noticed and said something. Read that carefully. Clarkson isn't just saying Packham is wrong, he's saying Packham is a hypocrite who saw the truth firsthand and is now pretending otherwise for television. That's a serious accusation, and it only works if the underlying detail is solid. Here's the part that changes how you should read that defense. Clarkson did not take over farming that land himself in 2012, and he did not start calling it Diddley Squad until years later. Before that, the land was contract farmed by a local villager under a different setup and a different name. So when Clarkson says Packham visited Diddley Squat in 2012, one of two things has to be true. Either he's using the name loosely for land that didn't yet carry it, or the date itself has drifted in his memory. Neither is a small thing to get wrong when your whole defense rests on proving you were there and saw the truth. To be clear, this doesn't prove Clarkson invented the visit, and it doesn't prove Packham never set foot on the land. What it means is that the strongest part of Clarkson's rebuttal is softer than it first sounded, and that matters, because repeating a shaky claim as if it's settled fact is usually where stories like this go wrong. This isn't one of those investigations with a single hard number carrying the whole thing. What it gives you instead is a 5-year paper trail of public contradictions, a feud that keeps changing shape, and a rebuttal that sounds stronger than it may actually be. That's a different kind of story. And it's better to be honest about that than to pretend there's a smoking gun sitting in a drawer somewhere. There's also a third voice in this story that most coverage treated like a footnote. Harriet Cowan, a farmer and regular on Clarkson's farm, didn't wait for Clarkson to respond. She posted Packham's clip on TikTok, captioned it, "The BBC's impartial presenter," and told Packham that before throwing shade at all farmers, he should research his facts. Then she filmed her own farm in Derbyshire and captioned it, "Can we all show our horrible monoculture farm, please?" That's the moment this story becomes bigger than a two-man spat. It's a farming community reaction, with someone inside that world stepping forward publicly and backing Clarkson's side in real time, using her own farm as evidence. That explains why the story spread so fast. People don't just react to facts, they react to identity, to tribe. When someone like Harriet Cowan speaks, she isn't speaking from outside the story. She's speaking from inside it. That's why the moment landed. Not everyone online agreed with her. One commenter argued Packham was actually right about corporate-owned farms, the kind of farming the government seems to prefer over family-owned, diversified farms. Worth saying, because pretending there was only one reaction would give a false picture of the debate. There was pushback, agreement, confusion. That split matters. Packham's complaint was aimed at industrial-style farming, not necessarily at Diddley Squat by name. And Clarkson's farm is not a factory operation. It's small, independent, messy, about as far from a polished industrial model as British farming gets. So there's a version of this argument where both men are technically talking about different things and still missing each other completely. That's usually how the best public arguments happen. Nobody stopped long enough to make that distinction in the moment, because television never rewards precision when outrage is moving faster. It rewards the clip, the line, the reaction. That's why stories like this keep coming back. So where does this leave it? There's no confirmed next column, no scheduled right of reply, no interview on the calendar that either man has announced. What there is, instead, is a pattern. 3 rounds spaced across the years, each one triggered by one man saying something in public the other refused to let sit unanswered. If the last 3 rounds are anything to go by, round 5 isn't a fantasy, it's a matter of time.